I am excited this morning because I feel my baby is being birthed. I've always had this burning desire to want to mentor and inspire young people, not to make the mistakes I made, so that they save themselves a decade or a lifetime of, waste of time. And so I went on my personal leadership program trying to find myself. And in doing that, this was in line with what my personal passion has always been. And so I said, why not? As part of my project, I was supposed to at least embark on two main things, whereby one, I had to engage the young students and then also engage young pharmacists. I got the opportunity to be part of the Ready for Life for the PharmD final year students, who I spoke to them briefly. And then this is one organized by me. And I'm very excited this morning that we are about to see it unfold and manifest. This is the maiden event, and it's something we are looking at doing every quarter. And I entreat us all to be participants, active participants, and then most importantly, take advantage of the knowledge and the insights and information that our older pharmacists will share with us. And it's going to be a platform to also network and to also get the opportunity to have access, direct access to these are established older pharmacists. So I am not doing this alone. I am co-hosting with a very close friend of mine, a colleague pharmacist, actually my mates from school. That's Dr. Richmond Amma, who is the president of the Young Pharmacists Group.
There will be an introduction and presentation. We have seasoned speakers over here that are going to be on the platform to have discussions, very immense ones, about the history and then the impact of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. We also have personal development for high impact. From there, we'll delve much deeper into panel discussion with the speakers. And then coming in November, we will launch the session today, which is about developing sector. That is the new big thing for next session.
So our first speaker is Farm Kwabna A. Ohene Menu. He was the former president of PSGH from 1983 to 1987. He was a chairman for the Pharmacy Council. So our first speaker, that's Farm K. Ohene Menu, will share a brief history and the impact of PSGH with us. And this is my own mommy, Farm Patience Trigger. She's the managing director of Unicom Chemist. I had a brief interaction with her, but it was memorable. And till date, it's been over 10 years, but we still remember each other and the impact we had on ourselves. For me personally, even though it was brief, I had a very, very memorable experience with her. And I'd want her to share with us how she did it, how she's doing it, and how she hopes to take us there. So our second speaker is the managing director of Unicom Chemist, Madam Farm Patience Trigger. Our third speaker is one that has been in the Arepi sector and has gone into another area, a very interesting area where he will throw more light on, an emerging area where there are opportunities for us as pharmacists. And he's the MD for Sesmex, Western and Central Africa. As I said, he will throw more light on that. And he is the president of the MedTech Chamber. And that's an area, a new developing area that has to do more with the diagnostics. And the pharma industry is gradually sipping there. And we are now looking at more evidence-based, treatments and all that. And Farm Eric Osei, our third speaker, will throw more light on that. Thank you.
I do not intend to read a paper on the history of Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana and its impact on the training of pharmacists and the practice of the profession throughout the years. I was told this would be a conversation, so I'm looking forward to opening up the topic, and then we all discuss after that. But for purposes of history, a few dates may have to be given. For which purpose? I might have to refer to some old documents that I have, but don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole lot. I'm going to take only a few portions that I think will be relevant to our meeting. Pharmaceutical Society, as you all know, was formally founded in 1935. So one would ask, what was there to bind pharmacists together before 1935? We are told that from the First World War upwards, those who were practicing what might be referred to as pharmacy were ex-soldiers who were part of the medical corps of the British colonial army. And these people were apprentices to these soldiers in the dispensing of medicines. And they were generally employees of the Ministry of Health. Some of them retired and then decided that they needed to have a crop of dispensers like them, but not working for government and doing something else. And they found that there was nothing else that they could do but to sell medicines and give injections to patients as and when they reported to their drug houses. The term pharmacist was unknown to them. So everything was drugs and poisons and drugs all the time. So some of these people were so trained and they became druggists and dispensers. As I mentioned earlier on, for example, we found from literature that semblance of drug dispensing using these army-trained people started in 1892 in Ghana. So that was the beginning of what you may call pharmacy practice. After they have been doing their apprenticeship with the soldiers and becoming druggists and dispensers, they moved on. There was no institution that controlled the practice of the profession, and therefore there was no association of any kind. But after the First World War, some of them who were more dedicated to the practice of the profession are wanting to see improvement in conditions of service, came together to form the Drugs and Druggists Union, which indeed might be said to be the precursor of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. It moved on until during the Second World War, where things got even more confusing for the medical department in Ghana. But luckily, one person among the doctors was quite willing and happy to help pharmacy to be introduced in Ghana. He himself was a doctor, but his father, back in the UK, was even then not called as pharmacists, but druggists on the register of the United Kingdom's Health Department. He encouraged one Mr. Ayia Hansen, who was a retired druggist in private practice, to set up an institution to train druggists. Ayia Hansen was the first person, therefore, to introduce what they call Hans Druggists College. But not long after that, the Ministry of Health and Government of the Gold Coast at the time saw the need to improve upon the training of these people, and therefore set up a dispensing school at Korle Bu in 1943. After some time, more and more people saw the desire to become druggists. Previously, they were admitting only those who have been nurses and have found or been proved to be very studious and eager to learn, and admitted them into this school at Korle Bu. That gives you the background why most of the people who became pharmacists later on and were in private practice in retail were always giving injections and administering medication to patients, because it was part of their previous training as nurses before they became druggists. After the groups have come together and Ayia Hansen's institution has trained more and more pharmacists, he, the same principal of the institution, tried to form a pharmaceutical society group, and that was what led to the formation of Pharmaceutical Society in 1935. After Mr. Ayia Hansen has set up his school, and government has set up the Korle Bu training, dispensing trainers college, it was felt that the practice was still low in terms of quality of training. So they dropped the nurses and paramedical staff and started admitting Cambridge school certificate holders into the Korle Bu dispensing school. And they were regulated to the extent that after 3 years study, they took an examination that was set up by the Minister of Health. Apart from Mr. Ayia Hansen, there was no qualified person, pharmacist, so to speak, to do or invigilate the examination. So all the examiners were doctors and nurses. So your precursors were determined to change the situation. So they moved on and pressed government to take the training school away from Korle Bu and send it to the Kumasi College of Technology, which had then been founded in 1952. It was started by one Eric Allman, who was a trained pharmacist from the UK, who had been brought here by UAC in those days. In modern terms, the company is referred to as Unilever. And they came in here with Mr. Eric Allman to start a retail pharmacy business. But the government, seeing that he had educational background that could be used, employed him as a part-time teacher for the dispensing school. And when the government decided to move the school to Kumasi, Allman had to resign from his job at UAC in Accra and go and settle in Kumasi. Those who were practicing pharmacy were still not satisfied. And with the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana then in place, put pressure on government which forced government to agree to upgrade the pharmacy department of Kwame Nkrumah Kumasi College of Technology into a degree, a diploma awarding institution in 1957. After this battle has been won by the society by getting pharmacists with diploma, which was recognizable by the UK, it was felt that they should go even further. Allman felt incompetent in running an institution for pharmacists who are being given the degree BPharm, while he himself, a UK-trained pharmacist, held only a diploma certificate. So the first time this gentleman wrote a letter to the Ministry of Health saying that he finds himself incompetent as a non-graduate to head an institution that was churning out graduates. So he left, and his immediate assistant, Professor A.N. Taki, took over the supervision of the school. The Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana put a lot of pressure on Professor Taki to get more involved in the activities of the society. And Taki had no choice but to accept to be part of the executive of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. And together, they put pressure on government to improve the facilities that they had at Kwame Nkrumah, not Kwame Nkrumah University, the Kumasi College of Technology. And finally, when the institution was chartered as a university, KN University was one of the first faculties. The Pharmaceutical Society haven't helped to form the institution or improve upon the institution so that now they have the BPharm graduates, felt that they needed to leave it at that point or move forward. They decided to move forward, and Taki brought in later on Professor Jan to assist him in running the institution. If you look at the background, you'll find that if it hadn't been the Pharmaceutical Society that was forcing and pushing, government alone would not have improved the training of pharmacists in the country. After we have come this far, by 1967, the school was training only about 30 pharmacists at the time. Again, the Pharmaceutical Society felt this was inadequate and started fighting. And the first batch that had more students was in 1970, when it turned out about 50 pharmacists. You will see, therefore, that over the time, there has been gradual improvement in the numbers and the level of training, but all of it has been pushed by the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, rather than by government or other interests. I became president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana in 1985, after I had been practicing for about 15 years, and that was after I had served in other capacities in the society. I started as the Honorary General Secretary. I worked for 4 years, became the Vice President of the Society for 3.5 years, not 4. And I would like to explain why 3.5 years. At that time, the society was fighting for improvement in the remuneration of gospel. And as the secretary, and later on vice president, rolled into one at a certain point in time, all the letters that were going to the ministry were signed by Kwabena Inimenu as either as secretary or as vice president. And the administration, that is the Minister of Health, did not take kindly to the kind of vitality that we were trying to put into the running of the society. I was then a medical representative at Pfizer. My boss was visiting, and we went to the ministry to pay a courtesy call. The chief pharmacist was our first point of call, and we went to the minister's office. And Mr. Sego, TEC Sego, who was then the chief pharmacist, introduced me and my visitor to my boss, to the minister, and said, "Sir, Mr. Minister, this is the man from Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana who has been causing us all the trouble." So my boss looked at me, and then the minister said, "Oh, so you are the secretary for Pharmaceutical Society?" I said, "Yes. I write those letters not for myself, but for Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana." So we left, and that same day my boss told me point blank, "I hear you're doing well for your profession, but from next month, make a decision whether you will work for Pfizer or you will work for Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana." Of course, there was no alternative employment at the time apart from Ministry of Health. So how could I say I'll work for Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana? So I had to resign as secretary and become the editor of the Pharmaceutical Journal. So you will see that in all these situations, it is the Pharmaceutical Society that has been pushing. And we have now got to a point where at the KNUST, where we were then doing the BFARM, has a problem because there was a change in school administration. A medical officer and a surgeon, Dr. Evans Ampham, became the vice chancellor, and he was the greatest enemy of pharmacy the world over. And he queried why the university was training graduate pharmacists, that we don't need graduates to count tablets, and therefore decided that the Faculty of Pharmacy should no longer train BPharm students, but do a diploma, which is back to what was happening at Korle Bu. Another fight by the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana led government to agree that the degree course should not be stopped completely, and if the argument of the Vice Chancellor was to be fulfilled, we should introduce the training of diploma pharmacists, not at the university, but at the Kumasi Poly. That was the beginning of the training of the dispensing technicians program. By that time, the pharmacy, Farm B had been stopped for a couple of years, and there were groups of people who were already doing the diploma course, and therefore something had to be done about them. And the compromise that government reached with the Pharmaceutical Society was that those who have done that program will be allowed to do a top-up to bring them up to a level where they can become registrable by the pharmacy board at the time. So you see, among us, we have a group that did the B Farm straight, then a group that did the diploma, and then top up to get a degree. We have virtually come back to the same situation. Now, even with the B Farm, Pharmaceutical Society felt that it was not enough anymore and started fighting for the introduction of the Farm D program. Again, there was opposition by the doctors who wondered why a pharmacist should have a doctorate degree. The country didn't have the resources to spend on people because they don't need it. But during the term of office of the late Mr. David Animado as president of the society, they continued the fight and got the institutions, training institutions, accept to start Farm D program. I'm now told that instead of the one school for pharmacy that we had in Kumasi, we now have about 5 schools. Some of them are still doing the B Farm, whilst most of them are doing the Farm D, which was the dream of a lot of people who are no longer with us today. So, fellow pharmacists, this is the background that I can give, and then if there are any further questions, we can take them as and when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Farm Ohinemenu.
Thank you.
I think that is an in-depth introduction about the profession. Please, those of you online, those who have joined via Zoom and then Facebook, kindly send your questions as well. I believe that most of you will have questions that you would want to ask, and we'll take them all and then try and have a very fruitful discussion after here. I would like to introduce the next speaker, and let us welcome Farm Patience Siga. Farm Patience Siga is going to introduce or share more knowledge on the personal development for high impact of pharmacists. So let's welcome Farm Patience Siga.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm here to talk about the wisdom from experience, gaining wisdom from experience in the pharmacy practice. I am a community pharmacist, and I would say I began my practice not as a community pharmacist, because at the time when we came out of KNUST, we had to do a compulsory 3 years hospital practice after our national service, which was then known as housemanship. So I did my housemanship in Kolebu Teaching Hospital, and then after being registered as a pharmacist, I was posted to Carnation Polyclinic, where I did the remaining 3 years, the compulsory 3 years. So right after the compulsory 10 years, I found myself with Unicom Chemist. And as young as I was, I had to start running a business. And it wasn't easy, but here I am trying to tell others how to run a business. I would start with what the Bible says in Ecclesiastes from the man who had wisdom more than everybody. He said in Ecclesiastes 9:10 that whatever your hand finds doing, do it well, because after leaving the earth, wherever we go to, there will be no work. And we have to work whilst we are here. It is not easy to run a business, and it's not only by hard work that your business will succeed. But I would say maybe the hand of God would help you. First of all, to run a pharmacy, the most important thing is to get a good location and then put in your best. Your best means you make sure that you stock well. You make sure that your customers are satisfied. And there will be no need to try to do what is not good, like just trying to cut corners, where you would want to stock anything at all. We have to have standards. You have to make sure that whatever you are stocking is of good quality, and you can defend the source of whatever you are stocking. In our time, it was a bit more difficult than it is now, because in our time, if you needed to buy your stocks, you have to go from the one importer to the other. So you can spend the whole day trying to get stocks for your pharmacy. And I would say you of today will have it a bit more easier, because there are one-stop wholesales where you get almost everything that you need. Aside that, this is a computer age where at the click of a button, you know where to get your medicines from. And the staff is well trained. In our time, there was nothing like MCA school. It was only pharmacy. The intermediary then was the dispensing technicians that our first speaker spoke about. And then you have other people that you just employ, and you have to train them. So they come into the pharmacy with no knowledge. They are supposed to just help with the cleaning and maybe collection of money, but they need the knowledge, so you have to do the training on your own. So it was not that easy at that time as it is now. I would advise the young of today who want to do retail pharmacy, end up with wholesaling, to look at it as a profession, not only a money-making venture. So you put in your knowledge and you put in your best. The rest would come if the work is going well and your customers trust you. We would also talk about discipline. And it's very important, because you can't run a pharmacy when you are always not in the pharmacy yourself, or you don't have competent people assisting. And everybody has to be disciplined, so your customers will feel comfortable when they come to your pharmacy. In this age as well, there are a lot more opportunities than our time. You can form a niche for yourself so easily by deciding on the way you want to go. You can make sure that your stocking is on point. You can make sure that your premises is on point. You can decide on what you want as your brand. And it is easier to get all those things than it was in our time. Also, you are fortunate to have a lot of people to learn from. You are fortunate to have the 3 months additional part of the professional exams where you end up in a pharmacy. In our time, you either go and look for locum yourself to learn how to run a pharmacy, or you are just thrown into the business and you struggle to learn to do what you do to bring the business up. So I would say again, you are fortunate. And you should take advantage of this era where there are a lot of older people to help you. When you find yourself during the professional exams training in a pharmacy, you have to be attentive. You have to go by the rules of the premises or the facility where you are working. You don't take advantage of the fact that you can tell stories and not go to work. That doesn't help. So you have to put in your best, and the sky will be the limit. Again, you can network amongst yourselves to see how best you can run the pharmacy. It's quite capital intensive. You have to get a location, you have to do the shelving, you have to buy your drugs. And if the finance is not available, it's a bit difficult. So you can come together. It has worked with people. You see 2, 3 pharmacists coming together. Everybody has his or her strength, and that will also help. Again, there's a training that is going on for the top-up, which helps with the clinical aspects. So being in the community, you can also take advantage of the top-up. It's 2 years. We have our colleagues who are over 70 being part of that training. And I know that even though it's not easy, you can all make it. And one other thing that makes a pharmacy do well is to gain the confidence of doctors in your community. Not only with the availability of the drugs, but then also the knowledge. And that is where the PharmD or the clinical pharmacy comes in. So when you get a prescription, you can notice contraindications, and then if there are any interactions, you humbly get your doctor informed, and together you can get the patient to be looked after properly. When that happens 1, 2, 3 times, you realize that sometimes even before they prescribe, they'll call you for your advice. And that also helps, because the patient then knows that the pharmacy he or she is going for the drug from, the pharmacist there has knowledge. So we have a lot of people come to Unicom and they end up leaving Unicom, and I see them grow. I see them and I get so excited and happy, because most of the people who pass through us just as internship or locum, or I see them doing very well in their practice. I think that is all I have to tell you. I'm still available, and anybody can contact if you think there's the need to get any information or any help. Thank you very much for listening.
Those are good guidelines for us, and we'll talk more during the panel discussion. So I'm introducing our third speaker, that's Eric Osei, who is the MD for SESMEX West Africa and Central Africa, and the president for MedTech Chamber. Let's welcome Eric Osei.
So good morning to everyone present. Special greetings to senior pharmacists and our distinguished speakers. And my topic this morning is on exploring new career opportunities as a young pharmacist. I finished the pharmacy program in 2001. And during my internship, I spent some time in the hospital and also with Sanofi as a medical representative. And I think immediately the following year, I got employed by Roche Pharma International. And you can imagine your second year as a pharmacist and being thrown into wildfire, which is having to give lectures on products and drugs and disease areas in the medical department at Korle Bu, where all the old professors are sitting in front, and when you finish, they start asking you many questions one by one. And this was a real challenge for myself to sit down and say, okay, you need to really focus because you have to be good at this. And this is one challenge that always comes as a young pharmacist, on focus and where you want to go. Now, during my life with Roche for about 8 years, we got to a point where we were no longer promoting just tablets and injections, but we started talking about biologics, cancer treatment, dialysis, genomics, precision medicine, and things like that. And this got me very interested in medical technologies because at some point, none of these drugs could be used without appropriate diagnostics. And that was when I met Becton Dickinson from the United States. And at that time, they were looking at opening an office in West Africa. And I'm glad to say I'm one of the first pharmacists to join the medtech industry in West and Central Africa. And we established BD West Africa in Ghana when we were in charge of all the 21 countries in West and Central Africa, promoting new medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and digital health, which was with respect to softwares, etc. And from that, I also moved on again into another company, which is Sysmex, which was mainly focused on in vitro diagnostics. And the issue is, in the advanced world, 70% of critical medical decisions are based on the test from the lab. And today, you cannot put people on drugs if you haven't done the right test and to get the right diagnosis, because patients come to you and they have been on Google already and they know even some of the parameters that need to be diagnosed. So out of this short career, I will say that there are 4 things that I will focus on for a young pharmacist in terms of career development. The first one is your aspirations must be based on your life interest. What is your deeply embedded life interest as a young pharmacist? And your deeply embedded life interest is not what makes you good at what you do, but this is something that you do happily. Even if someone is not going to reward you, it's something that you will always want to do. And I always use the example of patient care and patient safety. To the patient, they are the same, but for a professional, you have to know which part is your real passion. Are you really into patient safety, or are you really into patient care? That is an example. But in terms of life interest, there are broad areas that we all need to look at. Are you a conceptual thinker? Are you a relationship builder? Are you someone who wants to share knowledge? These are things that you really need to sit and reflect after the short practice that you have had to know what is your area of interest. And another way you can really know your area of interest is to speak to pharmacist leaders. Like Mrs. Chega said, our senior pharmacists, they look forward to meeting you. And you should always feel free to approach them, introduce yourself, and try to let them share their knowledge on roles, responsibilities, and prospects of what they have done and they are currently doing. And this also helps you to be able to distill properly what is your life interest as a young pharmacist. The third thing you need is to develop your skills. Once you target the career of your life interest, you have to develop your skills. So for example, back in the days, if you were a medical rep, when you want to do a presentation, we were using just transparencies, and we had to write our topics on the transparencies and project them. Then we started using PowerPoint slides, where we all needed to learn how to prepare PowerPoint slides and use them. And like one trainer said, it is an audiovisual aid. It's to help people understand what you are saying. You don't come and read slides to your doctors. So these were things that we needed to learn the skills on how to even prepare presentations and give them. Today, we have moved into another realm, how to do online meetings and webinars. And the only way you can acquire the skills is not to go and enroll in another course, but to practice it. Go to people who use it, practice it, and get the experience on how to use it. That is how we can develop our skills towards our target career that we think our life interest will help us to be successful. And the fourth and last one is the right attitude. So, as a young pharmacist, we meet a lot of challenges. I remember after school, I met a guy who said he just needs my license to import steroids. And he manufactures bleaching creams. And he will give me $2,500 a month. I don't need to come to his office. So, and the question is, what is your focus? What is your life interest? These questions are important because as a young pharmacist, wherever you find yourself, you meet these challenges. And you have to keep your focus, you have to be honest, and you also have to be assertive. What you see is what you do or say. And don't take your role as a pharmacist for granted, because people can easily use you for the wrong thing. And it's very important that we have the right attitude. To summarize, I would say that we completed the pharmacy program knowing maybe 4 or 5 areas, which were mainly industry, regulatory, going to Pharmacy Council, FDA. We had people who were into academia, we had reps. But I think today there are more areas, and we have pharmacists in more areas. For example, we have pharmacists in public health, we have pharmacists in health insurance, we have pharmacists in the medtech industry, we have pharmacists in pharma manufacturing, hospital administration, healthcare management, and healthcare financing. These are all areas where you have pharmacist leaders, and you can approach and talk to them and express your life interest for them to coach you on which areas you can identify and develop yourself towards. I'll just give a brief introduction to the medtech industry. So when we say medtech, it's medical technology. It's mainly focused on medical devices. So with medical devices are important from the day you are conceived in your mother's womb. The only way your mother got to know you were pregnant, maybe through a pregnancy test. And from there, they will do a lot of scan of the wombs, and you need devices to do the scan. You need devices to do the ultrasounds. When you have fractures, you need MRI, CT scanners. These are all medical devices that are needed. And our special role as pharmacists in this industry is that we are able to talk about diagnosis and treatments. And we are able to talk about the drug interactions that can affect diagnosis, for example. And this makes us special people in this industry. And that's why we have a lot of our colleagues now also in the medtech industry, and I also employ some of you to join us for the future. Now, we also have in vitro diagnostics in the labs. So back in the days, if you had a patient on dialysis, we just told them, take your erythropoietin and get some iron. Today, with a simple lab test like RET-HE, you can know whether the iron concentrations are enough or not. And if you don't know this as a doctor or a pharmacist, you just have to do your iron concentration, which costs a lot and may not even give a very good picture of what the patient needs. So the in vitro diagnosis is equally important, and it covers, today you see PCR testing. COVID-19 has brought a lot of these things out. The third area for the medtech industry is digital health. Whether we like it or not, the Ministry of Health's direction today is digital health. And this includes the hospital information system, the pharmacy information systems, and the electronic medical records. So sooner or later, all our hospitals will be paperless and everything will be online, and we should have the ability to work in the digital health space. This space as well, we have some pharmacists in this space, and you can talk to them to get more experience and information on this. On the global medtech industry phase, today, 14% of all new patents registered worldwide in every industry, including every industry, is medtech. The pharma sector has only 8% of the new patent applications. And COVID-19 has triggered even far more medtech innovations that will come and will change treatment. So if you are in healthcare as a pharmacist, as a lab scientist, radiologist, doctor today, you have no business if you are not interested in new medical technologies, because this will change a lot of things. And for example, open heart surgeries have been modified with catheters that will just go through your blood veins and clean up your arteries. So a lot of things will change, and it's going to be even much more drastic than we see today. And so there's a lot of prospects for the medtech industry, and I will urge a lot of young pharmacists who are interested in this area to develop their skills towards this. Thank you very much, and I hope it was worthwhile.
Thank you very much, Eric Osei. I think we'll have much discussion after this, especially through the career developments that you have actually shared with us.
We have the panel discussion, and I'll be joined by my co-host, and those of us online and in person as well. Good morning to us once again. Thank you all for coming, both in person and online. And we also want to thank our sponsors as well. So, I'll start. Daddy, thank you so much for the in-depth history, and it was quite elaborate, telling us and helping us understand the history of pharmacy in general and then the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. So I noticed that from your history, the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana really did a lot of advocacy and a lot of push and a lot of fights. So Daddy, I just want to find out what went wrong and what could be the cause, because now there's apathy towards the society. And I don't think that was what was happening in the olden age. And so what went wrong, in your opinion?
Well, it's difficult to say what might have been the cause. I think it's generally the attitude of typical Ghanaian. We're now more interested in making money than in offering service as a people. How can the society move and get things done without people making sacrifices? People have to leave their jobs at a certain time and go and do work for the society without expecting any remuneration. This is what is going on now. But in the old times, people were just happy to be seen to be working for the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, in addition to their own private avocations. now everything is money. You ask somebody. I was approached by an NGO who were doing a program that would involve pharmacy. And they asked if I could recommend somebody, one in Kumasi, one in Cape Coast, and one in Accra, like mentors. I gave some names out, and they would all come back and say, what is in it for me? If I'm going to prepare to appear on this program, what is in it for me? So I said, I don't know. I talked to the NGO, the secretary and so on. But before, if I had received that kind of invitation, I would have been very happy to go because I would be showing pharmacy to the world. But we don't have it that anymore. I think this is the biggest problem. Until we are able to decide to volunteer part of our time to the work of the society, we'll continue to have problems. We fought over the years to bring pharmacy to a certain level. But now, gradually, we're going back. And some of it is being our own creation. We now want to talk about MCAs rather than talking about training more pharmacists. Why? Because some people believe that they can make more money in using MCAs to run their shops rather than giving pharmacists and Minister of Health the opportunity to come and do locum to augment his or her remuneration. So we are our own, detractors, as it were. We have to change. We have to learn to sacrifice. We have to learn that if the profession doesn't stand, we don't stand, because that is it. You are a pharmacist, first and foremost, no matter which other specialization you might get into. I'm sure you'll continue to be happy to introduce yourself as a pharmacist. Yeah. So if so, why don't you help the society to move ahead? I don't know if there are any other...
Auntie Patience, would you want to add something to that as well?
It boils down to what our bigger brother has said. It's the issue of looking for money and fast money, and people wouldn't use their time for anything that they see it as unbeneficial to them financially. So it becomes a problem when everybody is thinking about himself alone. And to get the society to notice the effect of a pharmacist, we all have to come together and do it together. One individual cannot do it alone. So it calls on all of us to be interested in what is going on. I'm even impressed with what we are doing today, having people online and elderly people coming all the way to support what is being done. And I believe with such programs, the young will know that there's a need to move the profession further than where we are now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From Ohinemenu, and then I would like a take as well from Farm Patience and then Farm Eric. I just want to understand something. We seem to have lots of restrictions, lots of resistance from our own colleague doctors. Let me use our colleague doctors. So from the history that from Mohini gave, I think doctors have been restricting the progress of pharmacists. I just want to understand, you coming from the area of marketing, and then Farm Patients coming from the area of the community pharmacy, and then Dr. Ohinemenu, you also being the helm of affairs and then seeing it through it. Why is that, and what has been the cause of these? And then have you had any impact like that as well in your area of practicing? Because I seem to still have it in the area that I do practice. We still get some resistance. I'm in the marketing field. But why has it been so?
If I can come in, I would say The doctors and pharmacists are supposed to be friends to bring about the health care of our patients who can be we ourselves. But the training is part of the problem, because until recently that the PharmD had brought pharmacists onto the ward, doctors never came into contact with pharmacists that much until we come out of school. So it's always been doctors and nurses. And then the patients also know nobody but doctors and nurses. And then we come out of school and we come telling them we know so much about medicines. So there's a conflict there. So, and it is not only in Ghana. The doctor-pharmacist issue is a worldwide issue. So you see the programs now coming up trying to bring us together. That is why now they make sure that in the pharmacy training, you are part of the team from day one. When you finish your basic sciences and you are getting into a little bit of clinicals, you start going on to the ward. So the acceptability starts from there. And I can assure you that the newer doctors who had interactions with pharmacists while schooling won't see pharmacists as a threat like it used to be. And then also, there was a time they used to say they do all the work and we collect all the money, because pharmacy is seen as a money-making venture. I think that is also dying down with the interaction. They are seeing how important it is. So with more knowledge, I think the relationship will be better than it used to be. Thank you.
I would agree with you on that. As more and more knowledgeable pharmacists come into the practice space, the doctors will learn to appreciate the value of the pharmacist. This has not been so. Let's face it, until recent times, doctors have not been friends of pharmacy. You know, let's be quite clear. During my time, I heard a lot of stupid comment from doctors about pharmacists. If you have a deputy director from medical services, equivalent of the deputy director general of the Ghana Health Service, for example, tell you when you are asking for scholarships for postgraduate training for pharmacists, and they ask, you want for what? Are they going to teach at the KNUST? You said no, to work for the Ministry of Health. I said, to do what? We don't need them. You know, he tells you straight, and he is the final authority. He says, you don't need them, so he crosses out pharmacy postgraduate training from the budget. What do? He's got his own perception of what pharmacists should do. And it is because some of us, when we go to our dispensaries, we sit on that table, we don't walk out into the dispensary to see what the technicians are doing. So the patient doesn't see you, the doctor doesn't see you, and when he sees you, he thinks that you are not worth much. So we have to change our attitude. A doctor who was friendly to pharmacy once said, during Kutu Achampon's regime, that look, you pharmacists, you make noise for nothing. You military hospital, you are here, you are supposed to be my colleague. You don't come with me to the ward. When Achampong gets ill, they call me on the phone, and I go and attend to him. If he has to be brought to the hospital, he's in the ward, and I visit him in the ward. When you are in your dispensary and you see a prescription for General Achampong, you don't bring it yourself. You just give it to the nurse. If you want to be a good pharmacist, you should follow up for somebody like that. You should go, so that in the process, you also meet the head of state. And then they will all come to see the value of pharmacy. But we're not doing it, okay? The one situation that we had, the doctors had prepared the Ghana Health Service and Teaching Hospitals Act, the bill, the draft bill. And one big thing that they put in was that to be head of a department, to be head of in a district hospital or a teaching hospital or general hospital, regional hospital, you must be a medical personnel. Why? Running a hospital is not the preserve of the doctors, but they wanted to have it enacted into law that it should be left to only doctors. The Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana had to spend money to fight this. And we had to put so much pressure. Unfortunately for us, at that time, the person who was like Prime Minister was our own former colleague, the late J.H. Achampong, who was with us at KNUST. So we were able to get through to him. And he said, what they are doing is nonsense. So he asked the clerk, the clerk of parliament, that look, wherever you find medical, cancel it and put health. That is how that law was changed. So if at that time we had not been lucky to have known Mr. Owusu Acheampong, who was virtually the Prime Minister at the time, no pharmacist or any other professional person could have become a head of a even district hospital. But we now have situations where pharmacists have been directors of health services in the regions, in the districts and so on. So again, you need advocacy. How do you do it if everybody sits in his dispensary without coming out to see what the Pharmaceutical Society is doing? So we need to do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I agree with the two speakers on what they have said. And clearly, like I always tell most of our colleagues, 80 to 90% of the things that we complain about as pharmacists have actually pharmacists in control. And we have to build and work together. This is key. So I always ask, and I use two examples. I happened to chance on the impasse between the lab scientists and the doctors over who should head the lab, which happened about 2 to 3 months ago. Now, the crux of the discussion is responsibility. So if a patient is unhappy with therapy or the outcomes of the therapy, and the patient sues the Ghana Health Service, who is invited to court? Is it the doctor who took care of the patient, the pharmacist who gave the drug, or the lab scientist? And this is something we need to work on as a profession, that we have come from B farm to D farm. At the Ministry of Health, is the responsibility of a pharmacist the same, or it's been upgraded? Because that is what is the responsibility, is what is used in the job evaluation and the level of reach we can go within the healthcare system. And this is very important. And there was a case in Yahoo, I was also at Yahoo, where a foreign patient refused a prescription from a doctor because the country where she comes from, doctors don't write prescription. And it was a whole noise at the reception, and I had to explain to her. But if we have changed our skill set, then we should reflect this in our level of responsibility as pharmacists. And I think this would silently drive our appreciation to the doctors and how they work. But generally, like Mrs. Chega said, in the healthcare system worldwide, there's always these tensions between the various practice groups. Luckily for pharmacists, we have a directorate at the Ministry of Health. We have in the hospitals, we have the head of departments. We have everything that it takes to set up our own profession the way we want it. So let's build together.
Wow, that is very much insightful. So from the feedbacks that I'm getting, I think there has been this advocacy. I don't know, but then I'm also thinking that probably we don't have lots of pharmacists going into the top-notch places to also contribute in advocacy. I'm talking about politics because we don't have lots of them. But when you look at our colleagues, majority of them are in the top-notch places making advocacy that will benefit them. Do you think it is something that we can also look at, especially for the young pharmacists that are also here, those that are also watching via the social media? Should we also now begin to look at now entering into that top management system in terms of politics to also try and then fight for our profession and those that are coming?
Okay, I would say it won't be a bad idea to have pharmacists veer into the politics. But one thing is, the pharmacy job is very demanding wherever you find yourself. So trying to do pharmacy and something else becomes a little difficult. So people who want to do or get into politics will have to be very decisive and make their mind that this is what they want to do. Then it will be beneficial. But if you try to combine and do half-half and you are not very dedicated, you might not get far with it. That's why we don't have a lot of pharmacists getting into politics, because the work itself is very demanding. All the various fields of pharmacy are not easy, no matter where you find yourself. So it's a decision one has to make. And there can be encouragement to, we have a lot of pharmacists with the charisma that can get into politics. So they can be encouraged to go there too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Situation wouldn't help, and if we go all out, our career could be impacted because you could be tagged as a political person or what have you. So our desire and our passion died. Recently I spoke to other young pharmacists and they want to do something, but they look at their lives 5-10 years from now and they think it's not going to help. As we sit here now, we have proprietors of companies who are facing problems, but they can't come out to speak about it. And we have young pharmacists who don't have anything to lose. They are willing to go all out. But it appears they don't know what is going to support them to do whatever they want to do. So I want to find out from, please, I forgot your name. I want to find out, do you think it's a good idea for the PCs or the older generation to fund or support the younger ones who want to go into full-time advocacy for the profession, the business and politics of this whole industry? Do you think it's a good career option for us to take? Because I think that's the only option that we have now. If we don't do something, we stand a chance of having our career lag behind.
We have a big problem in this country when it comes to politics. Our politics is so polarized that no businessman would want to openly be seen to be for or against the government. So if you're going to be a politician, you want to go to parliament, you're going to stand on the ticket of a political party like MPP or NDC, and you ask your colleagues to support you openly, they would not, because they'll be scared for their business growth. So until the situation changes, I cannot see it happening soon, you would have to do the best that you can for yourself and then privately seek sponsorship from individual pharmacists or even companies. But we need people to make sacrifices, to go into these areas so that they can help in the advocacy for pharmaceutical society and pharmacy in general. Thank you.
Are there career options that, let's say, those who are experienced can share? Because maybe what we all know is either community pharmacy, being a rep, or maybe going to the hospital. And those are like the three things that people are exposed to. But are there leaders out there who have tried something else that could also help the youth? Because if I know there are about, let's say, 10 career options, then I'll also know my interest and do what? And channel it into those options as well. So are there leaders there? What are they doing to let us know about all those career options? And when it comes to the business side of the pharmacy, where is the community pharmacy? Madam made mention of location. And to me, I wanted to ask if from your experience or from your point of view, if the market is saturated, because you're looking at location and maybe you might be thinking there is no location. So what would be your advice to the youth as well? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. I'll start with the last one. I think in 2005 or 6, we did a study of which retail pharmacies in Accra are doing very well, and in Kumasi as well. And we realized that almost 98% of those that are doing well had a pharmacist there full time. Almost 98% of them had the pharmacist there from morning to closing. So this is one key issue, because I can tell you there are places where you can drive for 4 hours, stop at every pharmacy, and there's no pharmacist there. So the question is, how do you grow a retail pharmacy without a pharmacist? And I think this is something that we have to look at clearly as a young pharmacist. If you want to go into retail, you need the right focus, and you have to be there to make it work. So that is, for me, this is the secret to retail. And also, for most of the successful retail pharmacists, they really have patient care as their life interest, and they pay a lot of attention to detail. Not all of us pay attention to detail. Some of us want to look at the bigger picture. And so you can enter a retail pharmacy, the pharmacist is there, but he's not even looking at the patient. He may be doing something on his PC. His passion is not to take care of patients. So this must be clear. That's why I keep harping on the fact that you need to know what is your life interest. Now, in terms of the career areas outside the traditional things that we have known pharmacists for, we have a lot of pharmacist leaders in different areas. We have pharmacists at NHIA as head of departments. We have pharmacists in program management. We have one with us here, Sylvester, in NGO program management. We have many pharmacists in public health, running a lot of healthcare programs in the country. Now, in terms of international procurement, if you take the USAID and DFI, the UNDP, we have many pharmacists there. So we have a lot of pharmacists compared in other areas compared to when we finished. And they have a lot of experience, they have equipped themselves, they have a lot of skills that they can really encourage a young pharmacist to get onto. Yeah. With the mentorship, I think that this is something that the PSG executives should think about. The new executives who will come to think about having an online platform where we can have exchanges, because some of us are prepared to be there and to help. But until you have the platform, it's just going to be physical meetings, which is not really something you can do continuously. So I think that I will also say that the new executives should look into that. So long as we have online CPDs and other things, we can have online mentorship programs as well. And thanks to you as well for the program today, and I hope that you can do it on a quarterly basis and invite other pharmacist leaders so that young pharmacists will get to know them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll take another question.
It's a contribution. So I want to add on to the various ways that a pharmacist or a young pharmacist can look into. I take myself as an example. I work in the hospital, but strangely not as a clinical pharmacist that I even have a PhD in. Currently, I am the head of research for Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. So if you look at it, it's out of the mainstream that you think, oh, this is unheard of for a pharmacist. So like I'm saying, you identify your strength, like Senior keep talking about, and then whatever your passion is, develop yourself to that level, and then you become useful to the community, to the environment that you are in. So I interact daily basis with professors, with researchers, with doctors, all kinds of people coming to me for the service because my area cut across. But primarily, I am a pharmacist, but I happen to head a research department of a tertiary hospital. So that is it. You can just look at what your strengths are. There are a lot of people in production. The list is endless. So we just have to think out of the box. Let us not fit ourselves into the traditional roles. And increasingly, things are going to get also more expanded. In the other world, if you take UK, for example, now they are getting pharmacists becoming more prescribers, so that the common ailments that we are supposed to treat in the community, for example, would be enhanced. And to such extent that I'm looking into the future where if you are an asthmatic, if you are a diabetic patient, a patient with diabetes or other chronic conditions, your first point of call, which would be referred to by physicians, would be a pharmacy, a community pharmacy, where you'll be able to now manage these patients. But you would have done that if you had built your competences to that level. So let's look at building our competencies first, and then the opportunities will be endless. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So I want to elevate a question on what you just shared with us. We have some senior pharmacists among us. We have Dr. Atta here, and then we have from Harry as well. And then also the panel. I want to find out, so most of the young pharmacists Dr. Atta, you are into local production. Yes. So I just want to find out, should the pharmacist get a platform, a young pharmacist get a platform before he or she can do something, or in their own smaller areas, can they do something for themselves that would be much impactful in the society?
Yes, I'm very happy for this mentorship program. We have been through a lot. We have fought for Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. And like my boss said, I always call him my boss, because he helped me to get my first Volkswagen. What you have to know is that there is no end to learning, and you should always have an open mind. Be ready to acquire knowledge. Now, from what has gone on this morning, what my boss said, I also heard it, that after all, what is pharmacy? To count tablets, you don't need a degree. In fact, not only one doctor said that. I remember Dr. Iste Sakwe. He was also a minister of health. He said a similar thing. But then, there is no end to learning. And whatever you do, you have to make sure you do it well. For instance, when I was campaigning for my, presidency, the year 2000, I advocated for the introduction of PharmD because I could foresee that, like in America those days, PharmD is the registrable degree, and so I expect that it will come one day. So when I heard it was there, I joined the class, despite my age. And people were surprised, wondering whether an old man can finish this course. But we took the same exams, and we passed. Now, what you have to do, like, I am virtually in all the areas of pharmacy. Now, when you do the clinicals, like we say, people don't see pharmacists, you know, why? They are inside the office, or they are not there at all. How? A patient is waiting for you. Be interested in the patient. That is one of your gateways by which you can interact with the patient. Now, understand this condition of what is wrong with the patient, and then the diseases of common occurrence as is in the Act, you can attend to it, and attend to it very well. When I do anything, and in our environment, they take it to the hospital, the doctor will tell them that, please complete that medication before you come back. The other thing that the young pharmacists have to do is that they should come as close to the older pharmacists.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you one thing, not everything is written in books.
Yeah.
Not everything is written in books. I am interested in formulation, but then the technique of formulation is what we call understanding the condition.
Yeah.
I give this example every time. I say we all know 2 + 2 is what? 4.
Oh.
So it means 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is 4. So half in 8 places should be 4. So if you understand this, you can do what? Play around it and get what you want. As to why we have conflict with the doctors, but happily, currently, the young ones who are coming and attending classes together will not be the type of the doctors in my era. But even in my era, they call me. What do you think? But it is how you put your stead. You know, when you go, my boss was the first one, when I was a medical rep, to put me in West Africa. He put me in charge of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Gambia as a young pharmacist. So we should have mentorship so that the mistakes that we made, you will not repeat. And it will give you a frog leap, you know. And then you should be able to understand your pharmaceuticals. When you go to the wards, you are not going to talk medicine. Talk pathophysiology of the cases that you see.
Yeah.
You see, in that case, they will take you serious. And before they write anything, they will come and consult you. I was privileged to go in Kolebut. I think we were classmates, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, but that is seeking knowledge. You go, when you go talk about angiotensinogen, then they'll be looking at you. Angiotensinogen 1, angiotensinogen 2. You see, but all this will come with knowledge. If you don't display knowledge, they don't see your relevance. But if they see your relevance, they will be chasing you. Right now in Kumasi, I know of a pharmacist. If they want to go to the ward, if he is not around, I bet you, they will either wait for him or call him wherever he is, that please, it's time, let's go to the ward. So there are a lot of opportunities for the young ones. So to answer your question into production, you see, production is very much capital intensive. You need not do all. You can pick one or two. Make sure that you comply with the FDA requirements. You know, go to them. Tell them, this is the area of my interest. How can you help me? Then the discourse will start. If you are in trouble, some of us are ready to help you. What we know, we can let you know. Because for all you know, all that is written in books can be subject to change. But that change is also subject to experience. Thank you.
I would have wanted Chairman to also put in a word, but then I quickly want to bring in Sylvester. He would share a brief, he was supposed to give us a short presentation, but then he has to step out. So then I want to quickly introduce him for him to give us his insights before he leaves. So a brief intro about Sylvester. Can we hear him, please? Okay. So Sylvester Segbaya is a KNUST trained pharmacist with over 16 years working experience in public health. He started his career as an inspecting pharmacist with the Pharmacy Council in 1997 and became the head of education and training in 2001. In 2005, he joined the National Malaria Control Program as the Northern Zone Coordinator. In 2011, Sylvester was appointed Deputy Program Director for the Anglo-Gold Ashanti Malaria Control Program in Obuasi, where he later became director and supervised the scale-up of indoor residual spraying to 25 districts across 6 regions. That's the Upper West, Upper East, Western Central, Northern, and Ashanti regions. Sylvester currently serves as Chief of Party for the John Hopkins Center for Communication Programs, which implements the USAID Breakthroughs Action Project. He's passionate about strengthening pharmacists' capacity for development work globally. So I'd want him to share briefly highlights on this, because in our second program, that's our second session, which will be in November, it's Sylvester and public health and the global developmental area is where we'll be looking at and focusing on. So Sly.
Thank you very much, Audrey. I think I'm best positioned here, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I salute all the seniors here from Harrison Abutiati to Famohini Menu, from Arthur, and everyone else. Famohini Menu was the chairman of the Pharmacy Council at the time that I was an inspecting pharmacist, so it's a privilege to have him and hear him. Well, I won't say much today. Maybe my response to my good friend's question about opportunities within the space will be what I'll start with. By virtue of the kind of training we receive as pharmacists, we are exposed to a very broad range of learning options and then also practice options. I like the point Eric made about pursuing your passion, and actually that's what I will focus on a lot more when we meet in November, God willing. It's important to identify what drives you, what keeps you awake at night, and to see how best you can achieve it. There is great skills within the pharmacists, from your pharmaceutical chemistry through pharmacognosy, pharmacology, etc. Interestingly, when I was in pharmacy school, somehow I didn't like the normal or the traditional pharmacy stuff. So I remember in my second year, I chose to do an attachment in a herbal shop So there was this lawyer who had taken interest in herbal practice and had a shop at South Labadi Estates. And he was selling volumes. And he had all these international clientele who bought herbal products he had brought in from the UK, from Canada, and from across the world. And then he had bottled mineral products that he used for what he called mineral therapy. And I was like, so why don't we learn any of this? We learned pharmacognosy in school, but we hardly put it into practice until recently when herbal medicine was actually put on the degree program, etc. We used very little of our pharmacognosy. Now, this was a layman, and again, in Ghana, we have lots of lay people doing great stuff with what we are experts of. And what is missing is the connection between the classroom work or the pharmacognosy lab work and the real world and experience out there. So, again, maybe to respond to the great question you asked about mentorship opportunities, I think that this may be the way to go going forward. Have regular virtual mentorship sessions, or have a mentorship platform where people will put out their questions and have the seniors in the profession, people with experience, and there's a wealth of experience within the profession. I've met pharmacists who have been consultants working with institutions like Deloitte, KPMG, etc., and they have worked across the world. So not only do they have experience within the space of pharmacy, but also in international relations, in accounting. I mean, have pharmacists who are chartered accountants, and I'm like, how did that happen? Of course, I mean, when I tell my story, I'm sure many people wonder how I got into all that I do today. Sometimes I wonder myself, you know, but there is that need to create a platform where the linkages will be built, where people will get to know that there are all these things that you could explore and get into. Currently, I have one pharmacist doing a freshly registered, I think registered last year, doing an internship with us in our office. And I mean, 2 of them actually walked in, and I was like, well, let's give our colleagues the opportunity to learn. We're doing some work in WASH, in health facilities. We're also doing some work in neonatal, newborn, maternal health, child health, etc. So I was like, just tag along as the teams go out into the field, as they interact with the nurses, they interact with the various health care providers, and you'll get to understand that these are easy, interesting, fascinating things that are day-to-day basic common sense stuff that you, with your experience and your knowledge as a scientist, as a pharmacist, can actually add so much more to make it better. So just to summarize, public health for pharmacy is great. Developmental work, international developmental work, creates great opportunities for all of us. You do not even need to start by getting a master's in public health to get started. I always encourage people, get into the space, offer yourself to do an internship, or just go and say, can I do a 2-month attachment with you in your organization? And for that period, once they open that door for you, that's a great learning opportunity. For that short period you spend with whichever organization you are interested in, whether it's WHO, UNICEF, institutions like mine. I work with the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs. There are many. There's PATH, there's FHI 360, there are a whole lot of the international NGOs. Once they give you the opportunity to come in and learn, all you need to do for that short period is talk to as many people as possible, ask all the questions. There are no foolish questions. Ask all the questions you have the opportunity to ask, and begin to ask yourself, which of these things really fascinate me? Where do I want to find myself? Which of these things will I want to do, maybe for the short, medium to long term? And you would find somebody who is interested in saying, I'm ready to coach you when you have made a decision, or let me help you make a decision. And I believe that that will be one good starting point. So, sorry, I'll have to leave now. Audrey will make my contact available. If anyone wants to reach out to me, either by email or by WhatsApp, whatever, I'm happy to talk to you, and I'm sure that we can move this forward. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Audrey. God bless you.
So then I'll let Chairman to make an input with regards to mentorship and then career options.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here and also be in company of my seniors and colleagues. My name is Harrison Abutiatie. Maybe if I tell you a little bit of my history, it will guide you through some of the challenges I've had and some of the things I'm sure you'll be having. From childhood, I did not stay with my parents much. I stayed with a headmaster. So I used to wash his things, iron them in the house. Then that gave me some sense of helping people or doing things which I'm not used to, but in life, gradually you see how important those things are. Because when I went for interview to enter Chimuta, I saw this white man carrying a lot of books coming, and I went to help him to take the books to where he was going. And this happened to be the headmaster of Chimuta who was going to interview me. You know, so when we met, I had already seen that I had been accepted to go to Chimuta because we only conversed, and that was it. Then from there, I went to Tech. At first I went to do banking. I went to a bank. It was called Barclays Bank DCO. And I used to work in the bank because I needed money to continue my education and also pay for my kid brothers and sisters. Okay, so from there I went to Tech. Those days we didn't do sixth form. We went to pre-science and then you continued. But then, which meant that if you didn't go through the whole process to finish, if you should come back, you only had O levels, you know. So we struggled, went through Tech. And when I came out, I joined MEC, Danafco and MEC Sharp and Dome, it's an American company. And I worked for them for 20 years. 20 years, yeah, in Ghana and East and Central Africa. I'm bringing all this because you see, if you have some aim in life to do things, you don't have to jump from place to place. There are a lot of young ones who are jumping from so many companies. And you ask yourself, what are they looking for? If you do that, the first thing, if I'm interviewing you, I see this guy maybe is only after money, you know, and you cannot build your life on money alone. You know, it's important to know what you want to be in life. So when I was in East Africa, I had some time, and that is where I spent it to doing marketing. That's how I got into marketing, for example, spare time. No pharmacist, but I went to marketing. And whilst in Kenya, I also sat for the Kenya registration as a pharmacist, you know, and that gave me opportunity to practice or go to the hospital and see prescription that were going through the hospital and see how they affected my job as a medical rep, and I learned more from that experience. Again, when I was at Tech, I think we young pharmacists or the youth should get involved in a lot of activities whilst you're in school. You know, it gives you the chance to build relationships with other people. I was NUCS, I was with NUCS, treasurer of NUCS, for example. In those days, we designed this Nooks logo that you see. You know, so that student activity helped me get to know so many other students who were not necessarily pharmacists, you know. But then that's how you go through life. You meet somebody, you know, when I came back from Tech and I needed a land, for example, I just went to Tema, TDC, and there was a Tech student who knew me as an entertainment chairman of Republic Hall, you know. And he said, oh, you need land? Okay, I can help you. I got a plot. You see, so many things in life you may not think about from the beginning, but help you through life. And the banking experience helped me to know how to save money, how to handle money. You see, these days, too many attractions, and they can make you spend money without thinking about it. If you have aimed to do things, again, think about what you want to do. Also, a good partner. If you grow and you want to marry, a good partner helps. You know, I always say my wife is my backbone. She's always there for me, and she's helping me to do whatever I do. Now, how did I go into community pharmacy? And when I came back from Kenya, I saw that as an opportunity. And during my days with MEC, we were having a company called Shibre, which specialized in eye preparations. And through that, I got to know and see opportunities in eye products. We have pharmaceutical pharma products in eye, and also equipment for surgery, eye surgery. You know, so those were opportunities that I felt were lacking in pharmacy at the time. So through that, I got to myself involved in things like glaucoma. You know, of course, it's one of the key areas of blindness, or key diseases for blindness. And my involvement in the eye made me understand more about glaucoma and what I could do to help others to also know about glaucoma. And through that, of course, most people I meet think of me more than a glaucoma person, than a pharmacist. But the knowledge of the drugs that I use, or we use as pharmacists, helped me to do work in glaucoma practice. Okay. Then I also realized that we as pharmacists must help others. You know, there are times that when we become maybe successful in life, then we think that is enough. But most of the pharmacists who are doing well are involved in helping other people. Not only pharmacists, but other people as well. I know Brother Hinimeno, he's in Rotary, isn't it? Yes. And these are areas that you are exposed to meet other professionals as well. You know, so don't just hide yourself in wherever or whatever you are doing, and always be thinking about money and how to make money. Now, on reps, there's an incident which again will help reps, because here was a young rep who was going to visit a professor in medicine, specifically Professor Dodu, those who know him, Salal Dodu, yes. And the guy booked an appointment, he went in, and because he has so much upon his head, he just went there, good morning, Prof. My name is so and so. I'm coming to talk to you about hypertension. And the prof said, yeah, you want to tell me about hypertension? Okay, fine. Tell me about hypertension. Can you imagine the embarrassment that a professor of medicine asking a rep to tell him about hypertension? So you go there to learn. And where you see the gaps that fill maybe your products, then you say, oh, Prof, yes, oh, you've been using this, but there's a new one that can do this and this for you. You have learned, he has learned. You know, so that's the way to be going about how to talk to your other professional colleagues. Finally, I think you said something about politics also. Right? Is this relationship that you build with others that can help you enter politics? You know, because politics is numbers. And if you want to stand, if you want to stand in a certain constituency and people don't know you, or you don't help even the people in that area, you can go independent. Now independent candidates are winning and becoming very, you know, game changers. You know, so if you really do well in your wherever you be, you can make that good impression on those people that even if you stand as an independent candidate, you can win and do well. So off my head, these are a few issues I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have one question. One of somebody just sent me a question in terms of when you did mention of entering into community pharmacy, and then Farm Ohene is here. I think he's been there before, being in Pharmacy Council. One question that somebody has just asked me is that how can they enter into, how can they open their own pharmacies as young pharmacists, and when the nod is being given to businessmen who are non-pharmacists. So it's like they are being denied the opportunity to open their own facilities, those that are interested in community pharmacy. However, the nod is being given to bigger business men who are non-pharmacists. And I even attest to one where someone was denied, not a young pharmacist, but a pharmacist was denied accessibility to use a facility, but then after some time, the same facility was given to a businessman to open a pharmacy.
I don't know. Pharmacists, we are our own enemies. How did that person get a license to open the shop? It was given by the Pharmacy Council. Who works there? Pharmacists. So, what is your problem? If we decide to do our work well and honestly, with the intention to help the community and the patient, then we would want to make sure that whoever we give a license to is going to offer quality service to the patient. That if we decide that it will be more lucrative to us as inspecting pharmacists or as staff of the Pharmacy Council, and therefore we would give the license to somebody else rather than to a fellow pharmacist, then again, who can help you? Nobody can do that. It's only you. Until we change our attitude. I've been on Pharmacy Council before. We had some very good inspectors, and we had very bad inspectors as well. I remember one occasion when we decided that we were going to clean up the practice in the Western region, which had been taken over by chemical sellers. I would say, look, if we're able to weed out these chemical sellers who are unlicensed, it will give opportunity to our people to expand their businesses. So we planned to make a soup, Takrady, secondary Takrady. We fixed a date at council meeting. The whole council was going to go there. We were going to have a meeting there, and then after that, go into town with the police and so on. The day we got there, every chemical seller shop was closed. There was no chemical seller at our council meeting, but there were pharmacists, all pharmacists at the meeting. So how did the chemical sellers know and close their shops on that day? And so we realized that we had made a useless effort, as it were. So it is our own problem. Unless we change our attitudes, it can't ever work. It can't ever work. I'm told that you go to the Pharmacy Council, your license is delayed, and there are agents, that like the Goro boys of the DVLA, who, if you are prepared to give them some money, they can get you the license within a certain number of days. But you, a pharmacist, you go there, it might take you 6 months if you're lucky. I don't know what anybody can do about it until and unless we ourselves decide to change so that the profession can grow and our members, that is pharmacists, can get good returns for their investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's got a question from you.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much, Audrey, for this opportunity. This question goes to, all the panelists, but more specifically to Farm Osei, because he spoke more on the aspiration and being focused. The pharmacy, it's a very broad and diverse profession. And so we, the young pharmacists, some of us become a bit confused as to what to do when we are out of school. So you ask a pharmacist or young pharmacist or who is about to graduate from school, what do you want to, or which area do you want to specialize or work in, and they will tell you, I don't know yet. So in that regard, would you advise, or is it good to try some couple of domains in the pharmacy profession and probably try to find your feet in one of these, knowing the fact that as at the time you're leaving school or as at the time you're becoming a pharmacist, you don't really have a specific area you want to focus on? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that we have 3 categories of people, or young pharmacists. There are people who go into the course knowing exactly what they want to do. So from school, they go directly into the area where, especially those in hospital pharmacy, they have the interest and they enter the course with that. There are those who, through the housemanship and the internship programs, acquire new interests in new practice areas, and that's where they want to focus on. But I'll give you an example of a guy who was so much in love with the medical rep job, and his reason was that we had new cars. New cars. So this guy comes for the interview, he's giving his appointment letter, and the first day he comes for training. So I saw him in the morning, I said hello, and I left with him with my boss. And he got his first day of training. In the evening, he resigned. Because he didn't know that we were learning so much. And we had to take in a lot of information within one day. And he was not really, that wasn't his passion. He thought you could just, you get a new car, you move around, get a lot of friends, and you are back. So then that's why, from my experience, I would say that it's good to speak to a lot of pharmacist leaders. Because speaking to them is where you get near information on what actually happens. And they are most likely to welcome you because they have been through it. And you can see all the statements here. I'm not sure our senior pharmacists will say some of the things they have said if they are in front of journalists. But they are happy to say it because it's to help the young pharmacists. So once you get close to the pharmacist leaders, you get to learn a lot about the areas. And I used to do that a lot as a medical rep, that I'll go to the clinical pharmacist office, get to know what they do. I go to the research side, get to know what they do. I was even going to, at that time I remember Kolebu, Alex Dudu had his office there where they were doing plant research, just to understand what they are doing. Yeah. So even though you were with Roche, you wanted to understand Paracelsus and eye drops and what the market potential is and everything. So you have to keep talking to the pharmacists in leadership positions to understand many things. Because if you, without that experience, I can tell you there are people who enter parliament the first day and they have a lot of regrets why they became parliamentarians. So it's important to speak to people to understand where you want to go. It will take away a lot of time wasting. It will also encourage you to learn, because you will see senior people who have done a lot of learning, and that will make you have that motivation that haven't finished learning, I need to acquire more knowledge. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much. I want to take another thing. I want to also divert his question again into how best can we make the profession an indispensable profession, because from all the statements that have been made and from Ohene Menu's discussion, he also made mention of the fact that people didn't see the need for even pharmacists doing a degree program. So now we have come very far. How do we make our profession an indispensable one, emanating from all the practicing groups, so those in community, REPI, gospel, those in academia, and all the other facets? How do we make our profession an indispensable in the sense that when we are not there, people cannot function?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the main issue is for us to look and really think deeply and analyze as a profession and as PSGH what we want to do. And in this analysis, we will have to look at the opportunities and threats that are coming. Africa Free Trade Continental Area is one big issue for pharmaceutical manufacturing today. So government of Ghana is talking about producing COVID-19 vaccines. The question is, what is the role of pharmacists in here? Put yourself in the shoes of the president of Ghana. If you talk about Ghana pharmaceutical industry, who do you want to meet? Do you want to meet Chamber of Pharmacy as a group, pharmaceutical manufacturers? Do you want to meet AREPI? Who do you want to meet as the representative of Ghana pharmaceutical industry? And when you look at COVID-19 vaccine production, if you go to Senegal, we have Institut Pasteur. Most of the management and professors at Institut Pasteur are pharmacists. Go to Ivory Coast, we have CIDRES. They are all pharmacists. Go to Nanoro Center, where Glaxo is doing the vaccine trials. All the research people and heads are all pharmacists. The question is, if we want to start COVID-19 vaccine production tomorrow in Ghana, where are we as pharmacists? So these are threats, at the same time opportunities that are coming. And pharmaceutical society and pharmacists need to be strategically positioned to take these opportunities. For me, there is no need fighting over the same space as hospital when you have other big opportunities which are also coming. And if we are not careful, these opportunities will go to other professionals. Yeah.
And so which people are supposed to now that pharmaceutical companies in those countries are into the production of the COVID-19 vaccine, which people will do the vaccination? I am asking this question because before made mention of the FAMD. And I am thinking that, is it not time for us to move away from managing disease of common occurrences in the pharmacy than to a more practical thing as those who did FAMD are doing, because it is more practical.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the essence of doing a more practical thing in FAMD and then you come back and then dispense. So with this, so a typical example is what you have just mentioned. Are we not supposed to now begin to engage PSGH and then every stakeholder to overtake or handle the incidence of vaccinating people? Because when you go to other countries, pharmacists are doing this.
Yeah.
So then what makes us different?
I think the main issue is for us to come together, to be united, and to meet the policymakers and to meet government. We have to be united because government dealing with different facets of the society. Where gospel has its own interest, CVV has its own interest, Chamber of Pharmacy. We will never get far because at the end of the day, some of the interests really bring down others. And this is why, as a society, we need, and GMA as a group does this very well, that they have a lot of unity within their practice to forge ahead with a strategy. And that is what we need to forge ahead with, because if I am a REPI and I'm importing drugs, and PMAG is looking at propping up local production, where do we meet? Where do we meet? So this is why we need to come together. We need a leadership that will bring everybody on board. The silo thinking and thinking about just one group and the other group should stop. And that way we can move forward, because because you need, for example, government talks about farmer park. If you have a farmer park today, are we interested in bringing medtech industries, for example, into the farmer park? Which happens elsewhere in Korea and China and those places. The park is full of medtech and pharma companies together because they are all in healthcare. And most of the things they need in manufacturing may be likely closer. So if this strategy is clear enough, then the young pharmacists can look ahead with optimism that this is where we are going and this is where something will happen for us. And so it's not, let's say it's not a very clear-cut situation that with DFARM today, we can say that we are equipped to produce COVID-19 vaccine. No. We need to build a skill set. We need to have the setup to do that.
To Famhari, somebody has asked a question on the platform. Somebody wants to know what the Chamber of Pharmacy is. That's the first question. And another person is also asking that I'm a Rwandan PharmD student at KN University, soon to graduate. With interest to practice in Ghana, what would you advise a foreign student trying to practice in Ghana? Because she is asking that because you mentioned that you also practice in Kenya. So the person would want to know. Thank you.
From the end. When I was in Kenya, I was with a pharmaceutical company called Merck Sharp and Dohme, who employed us there, and we were doing local manufacturing of Merck products. So it was a total agreement with the company called Dawa in Kenya, and they were manufacturing for Merck. So that is how I got to Kenya. But the chamber, as I said, is a unified voice for industry. That's what we want to be. So that if anything about pharmaceutical industry comes up, we should be in a position to say something which is representative of the ideas that the industry has. So if you want to join, you can be one of those institutions that I've mentioned, REPI, over the counter. No, those ones are for non-pharmacists. But there are some businessmen like Piwa in Piwa, who you can join. We also have other people who join individually. But we have a secretariat on the way to Bachuna. I can give you contacts so that Audrey can get that information for us, and we can let you have that. The opportunities that or benefits that you get is we expose you to government institutions first who want to do something in industry, pharmaceutical industry. If Ministry of Trade and Industry, if they have a trade delegation that wants to do anything in pharmacy, we encourage pharmacists to be put on site trade delegations. We are exposed to international pharmaceutical exhibitions and programs like IFEX, which happens in India, and through that we are able to learn what is happening there. And when we come home, we also tell the government that maybe the incentives they are giving for pharmaceutical establishment and also encouraging investors to come to Ghana to do anything in pharmaceutical industry must be improved, because there are a lot of those outside, in India, for example, and China, who are giving better conditions, better interest rates, tax holidays, and even they provide facilities where the enclaves are already made up, provided with water, electricity, internet, and everything, as we are trying to do at Dawa on the way to Aflao. So that's what we are capable, or we are doing now. Yeah.
Well,
thank you. Yeah.
I would like to make a comment on this issue. In our fight for recognition as a profession, we had tended to break our ranks. We now have GOSPA, you have NAPAG, the chamber, and so on. It makes it difficult for organizations and other agencies who have to deal with pharmacy to know exactly who they should talk to. I have been thinking, if it wouldn't have been best for the manufacturers and the profession as a whole to have a system of saying that everything comes under the umbrella of Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, like the medics do. They have all these branches and so on that we have, private family clinics and so on, association. But you will never hear a statement coming from any of them to government. It's the Ghana Medical Association. And they have built such a formidable force that if they talk, government listens. If Pharmaceutical Society talks for GOSPA, it will have a different weight than GOSPA talking to government. But we have always insisted that GOSPA should go it alone. They are fighting with their employers, they declare strikes, and they don't work. Because if they decide, GOSPA decides that they are going on strike, why should community pharmacy go on strike? They are not part of the organization.
Yeah, they make more.
So, we will never win. I think we should work out. Is it possible to have everything come under Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, and then we'll say Chamber of Pharmacy division, you know? So when you go to the minister, he knows that he's meeting a group from Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana, and he knows the strength of Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. I think we should have divisions. Stay as you are, but in the official communication with the outside, outside pharmacy, let's tell them that this is Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. If you touch one, you've touched all the groups within the society. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand where pharmacist Hinimenu is coming from. It's just that the chamber is an economic group of pharmacists. Yeah, business people. I mean, mostly all chambers are members of businesses. Yes, Pharmaceutical Society is the professional group. And it comes a time that it's not only pharmacists who belong to chamber. You see, non-pharmacists can belong to chamber because they have interest in pharmaceutical industry. I mean, if an investor is coming to invest in pharmaceutical production somewhere, maybe it will not go to Pharmaceutical Society.
Sure.
But the chamber has that ability to meet so many business people and interest them in pharmaceutical business. You know, what and this is why we have CPPA, which is a very strong unit of Pharmaceutical Society within the chamber. We suggested that they should join because they are more in community practice and they are doing more businesses. But if you strengthen us, we are able to support the society. You know, assuming that the chamber has enough funding and it meets somebody who wants to invest in the Pharmaceutical Society house or project, we can attract such a person to come and do it, or even see how we could go about it to get the funding for such a project and generate money for the society. So that is where it's a bit difficult for us to be under society, the Pharmaceutical Society per se. But we are in collaboration. We talk to them. We discuss. In fact, normally I'll call the Pharmaceutical Society about even a release that we want to make and say, look, does this conflict with something the society is interested in? And then we hold back, But there are times that maybe the society should also be proactive and not wait until things have gone on and nobody say anything. And then you ask yourself, so who is in charge? This vaccine issue, for example, the society should be very strong now to be showing that, look, this is our profession, and this is what we think should be done, and this is how we have to do it. Then that comes up. But if we wait and wait and wait, nothing seems to be happening as we want, then the chamber will make a statement just to show that things must be going this way, and then we contact somebody in the society to give her the assurance it's okay. Yeah. That's all.
Thank you.
So I had a few, sorry. I think you have a question for us.
You find a lot of pharmacists, other pharmacists, especially the farm bees, bee farms, they don't understand why they should find PharmDs in the community pharmacies, because then it's with the intention that PharmD is more clinical. So we should stay in the hospitals. So when they see PharmDs as reps, it's like, what are you doing here? But I know, so I had a privilege to sit in, it was like a conference for a pharmacy school in America. And then they were talking about how the PharmD program is actually very different from what we do. So it's like they do 3 years general pharmacy stuff, and then the remaining 3 years you can branch to any other field. And I think when the PharmD started, there was complaints also from the industrial pharmacy side saying, aren't we focusing too much on this clinical thing? So don't we think it's supposed to be a change with maybe the way we do our training? That way then we can target every bit of it, because I don't think it's, even with our batch, not everybody really wanted to do straight clinical, and I don't think all pharmacists actually want to go into community or clinical. So don't we think that maybe the way we do our training here with pharmacy should be reviewed in a certain way?
What's the name? Anissa. Very good question.
So I think even though
it's too early. It's too early to talk about it.
I think that's a very relevant question, because I've also heard on other platforms that currently the way the PharmD is structured is more of clinical. But all the same, I believe one thing, that whatever you want to do, you have to start from somewhere. I recollect that it's over 20 years ago that I proposed PharmD. So I believe that since these suggestions are coming, right, we are not going to reinvent the wheel, but then we need time to study how other nations have gone about this. And then we have to consider our own conditions, how it will fit in, before it is sieved. So that if you do PharmD, maybe industry biased, clinical biased, whatever you will choose, as has been propounded this morning, that the one that you feel is your passion is where you should go. I think this is how I would look at it presently. It's a matter of time. But once you know that this is ahead of you, I believe those who are formulating the policies with time, will bring it into the fore. Yeah. But I want to add another thing. You see, we've spoken about knowledge, and the fact that pharmacists are always not in the facilities. It is on record that most people, when they are not well, the first place they go is the pharmacies. And it has been also said this morning that all those pharmacies that do very well have the pharmacists present every time, as compared to those who have something else to do, you know. So we have to make ourselves relevant to the community. Then you also become a force to reckon with over there. In fact, if you do your homework, let me use that very well, show interest in pharmacare. People don't care, coming all the way from Winneba, Swedru, to come and consult you, simply because of the interest you show. As an example, I had a patient who came. When I look at the prescription, I said, "Oh, how long have you had this?" He said, 3 days. And what has happened? So I haven't got it. But you need it urgently. All right. What I did was I picked my phone, I gave her a seat, and then contacted my friends. And then luckily we got one. And then asked her to go there. She was very grateful. After 4 or 5 days, came back. Imagine I was not there, and I have left those who, as business as usual, there. This will not happen because they do not know. This is what we should also, if you are going to retail, pharmacy is not bad. Otherwise, why do you think people are struggling to take the licenses from us, which they have done anyway? Then the other thing I want to ask is that we should show our relevance. Let me give an example. If you have PharmD and you go to the wards, you discuss a patient. Now, this patient has been on, let's say, metformin for the past 10 years. As PharmD, I believe you should be able to ask, look, what is the toxicology? What is the pharmacodynamics that is going on inside this patient? We should be able to monitor all these parameters and then develop a kind of data for Ghanaians, because right now, as we are, all the data we have are not pro-Ghana, if I would say to, or the black man. So at a point in time, we have to be able to ask government, we need these tools so that our relevance can be felt even when we go to the wards. Thank you.
Would anybody want to say something again? So
let me just add to what Dr. Atta said. I think the PharmD curriculum, as it is now, is a bit too early to, go the way that you're suggesting. Obviously, we will have to move away from the clinical thing that we have started with. But at that time, the needs of the community, the needs of the country was geared towards the clinical practice rather than in the other areas. Like somebody will say, the pursuit of learning without relevance to the needs of the community becomes meaningless. So let's let it work as it is. As we realize that perhaps we need more and more in community pharmacy, then they can introduce the program so that they can shift away and get more. For now, we need to know, for example, how many people will be interested in that aspect of it, so that when we are recruiting or engaging students, we know 1/3 will be this way and 2/3 will be that way.
So we are also even looking at, sorry, we are looking at engaging the other industries to see, even though maybe you guys will come out as PharmD students, if the interest is in probably clinical, I mean not non-clinical in terms of industry or training or other aspects, how can we form collaborations? How can we accept interns, though you may not have a bit of experience with regards to industry? Because I'm hearing the Pharma Park, I'm hearing Enclave and all that. So then definitely it's an area that we would want to look at and see how we can engage the key stakeholders involved. Looking at regulatory as well, see how people who are even clinical pharmacists can work in the regulatory sector without necessarily being in the clinic or in the hospital. So it's something that is coming up strong, and we would look at that, because I think that these are new areas, emerging areas that we would all need to concentrate on. Right, thank you.
Also, to add, I happen to be a visiting lecturer to KNUST to teach pharmaceutical marketing. And I think it is something that we're also trying to see how best, in as much as we are learning the clinical, we can also generate people with interest in the pharmaceutical space. So I think it is about telling the time and then building the block. I believe, just as you have mentioned, just as Dr. Mata has mentioned, from time to time, I think we'll get there. Yeah.
So I think that we can round up here. Do we have any other questions or concluding?
First of all, I want to say I'm really excited about this meeting. And, as maybe it has been suggested before, maybe it should be a bit more of maybe quarterly. Yes, so that we can also have time for our work.
Yeah.
My vision is that with so many pharmacies being produced, one day a pharmacy must be owned by pharmacists. It's the only way we can control the profession. We don't want, we have said, and I'm sure a lot of other pharmacists have said it, that unless we own the facility, it will be difficult to control what goes on there. That should be our vision, all of you. You must think it takes a lot of money to start a pharmacy. But I remember when I started, I put just 111 of every item. And when somebody comes, he wants a product which I don't have. So come tomorrow. It just finished. You can come tomorrow. And I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Yes, I sure. That is how it should be. I also support your setting up a platform for young pharmacists. I'm looking for a pharmacist to work for me, but it will be next year. See, but now I'm looking. So if I have such a platform, I can get a few of you. I will tell you what areas I'm interested in, and maybe you can give you a chance to meet me. Then after talking, I'll decide who fits, what I want to do. So continue learning, because that's the only knowledge that will make you go to places. And enjoy your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Harry. Dr. Harry, just about that, I happen to be the president of the Young Pharmacists Group of Ghana. Lots of pharmacists, most of my people do come to me with this worrying issue about the fact that they think that pharmacists should rather own pharmacies. Can this be done? With Dr. Ohene here, can this be done? Because it is something which is on the tablets of every pharmacist and young pharmacist. I believe you all attest to that. Can this be done, please? And how do we go from there? Because I would also want to handle this.
I would say it can be done. There are legal issues involved. And like I said, pharmacy profession is controlled by pharmacists. If you say pharmacy for pharmacists, the first question is, how did we arrive at a limited liability company owning a retail pharmacy? Because you need 2 directors. So it means that we will all be directors in another retail pharmacy everywhere. And so this is an issue that we need to resolve. But it can be done. In most countries, pharmacies are for pharmacists. Yeah. And our neighbors, Ivory Coast and Togo, I mean, this is completely strange to them. Things like chemical shops are completely strange to them. They don't know chemical shops. It's all pharmacies. And pharmacists own pharmacies. Okay. Yeah, so it can be done. It's just but I think that we are getting to a point where we have to be careful, because we may get to a point where pharmacists will start suing the pharmacy council. And then that will become very dirty. So this is something that the new executives of the PSGH will have to look into and get closer to the pharmacy council to resolve issues. Because if you look at every profession, to make the big leap, the big changes, you see Ghana Bar Association with lawsuits from members. And it's because you want to change something. Yeah. So I entreat the new executives to work more with the council to resolve some of these issues. Else we'll get to a point where the whole country will get to know our real problems.
It's a difficult thing. We have had a situation where we thought we should advocate for pharmacists only owning community pharmacists, but it didn't work. First, we were told that Parliament cannot pass a law which can be challenged as being discriminatory, which means that the Pharmacy Act cannot be amended to say that only pharmacists can run pharmacy businesses. So that was the first defeat that we had. The second one was that, do we have pharmacists who have the financial backbone to be able to establish pharmacies in the communities? The answer is no. That was why at one stage it was suggested by the Pharmaceutical Society that the society should rather start operating pharmacies, so that you buy, instead of the cooperative pharmacist thing, this one will be owned by the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana in trust for those who are going to operate those pharmacies. So the funds for it will be provided by the Pharmaceutical Society, whether through raising loans or shares in the bigger organization. Then if I apply for part of that for a particular location which qualifies under the rules of the game, then funding will be made available to me and I can run it for myself and for the society as well. But that never worked. That never worked. But earlier on, questions were raised as to how do we find money. The lady who spoke on committee talked about joint business partnerships. Again, most Ghanaians will tell you, not only for pharmacy, that Ghanaian business partnerships have never worked. Yeah. You know, so we have a real big problem, which we cannot win. We have allowed non-pharmacists to make so much money out of pharmacy, and they are holding this money. I'll tell you that if you put anything like we're talking about now to Parliament, we will not get one vote for us. Because most of them own pharmacies. Most of your MPs, they own pharmacies. There's this gentleman in MPP who talks most of the time about wrong things in the community. And recently, he made a very profound statement. He said his own party should be very careful because, like the NDC made petrol filling stations their bane and made money out of it, MPP is now making pharmacies their source of money. So everywhere you pass, you see a new pharmacy. Everywhere you go, you see a new pharmacy. You find out it's one of his own colleagues, according to him, who own them. And it was the other way by NDC, petrol filling stations. And that was less dangerous, according to him, than what we're doing now, because these are drugs, they kill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, pharmacists will be going to the polls. We are going to elect our leaders, president, vice, treasurer, executive member, of which Audrey is vying for one. You have been in it all, Famohene, Dr. Arthur, and then Merrick. What advice do you have for pharmacists and also for those going for positions?
Yeah, for me, I would just say that young pharmacists must show a lot of interest in the elections. Let your vote count and hold the people you have voted accountable. Don't vote and go and rest and complain. I always tell people that in life, you get to a point where you sit down and complain about what leaders are doing. Then you get to a point where the leaders you are complaining about are your classmates. And then you get to a point where people are complaining about your leadership. So let's all join and, after voting, charge the people we have voted into delivering what we want them to do. But on top of all is to look at bringing the society together, as Doc said, that PSGH as one is a bigger force than just the subgroups or the regional groups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, young ones coming, you have a lot of opportunities ahead of you, but whether you make it or not depends on how you utilize the opportunities that are available. Don't keep yourself only in the box of pharmacy. Pharmacy has given you the background education that should enable you to go into any other professional group that you want to belong to. You go to most of the places, we have doctors who were pharmacists before they became doctors. We have lawyers who were pharmacists before they became lawyers. So you look at various areas. We had accountants, scientists, and so on. So the areas are quite wide. So don't give up. It might be a bit frustrating for you in the early stages, but try and find what is best for you, your best interest. Pursue it with dedication, and you should succeed. Don't forget that I have repeatedly said that pharmacy has come this far because of the pharmaceutical society and not government. And pharmacy can continue to grow only if pharmaceutical society is strong. For it to be strong, you need strong leadership. Leadership with dedication and willingness to cooperate with each other and move the society forward. If we don't do that, pharmacy will gradually die. Pharmacy, to me, was better a couple of years ago than it is now. So please, let's look at our own interests, move forward for it, and move the pharmaceutical society along with you so that they can continue to be your support. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to encourage the young ones who are coming that you should take the election very serious and know your interest, because from 1935 up to now, we have had dedicated people who are not paid anyway. But you have to know that election is about you yourself. And like we have all propounded here, one day, when you retire, don't think retirement is so far. You know, some of us have now entered our 70s. We've even added 5 over it. You see, so take the election very serious. Take very serious candidates, because they've got to work for you. And mind you, from my experience, occasionally you will fight the government. You will fight the government. But if you are not in a position to stand for the society, then you want to compromise those who belong to the society. And that can be very dangerous. Thank you very much for the opportunity granted us to share our experience. And like I said, not all things are written in books. Continue to call us. We are ready to, you know, be with you to share our experiences so that the society continues to move and wax stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We've just exceeded our time slightly. Thank you all for coming, both online and in person. Thank our older and senior pharmacists for making time. And as I keep telling our younger pharmacists, the older ones are ever ready to share their knowledge and their experience, because they do not want us to make those mistakes that they made. So take the advantage and then just forklifts. Come and see them. Most of them run open door systems where you can just book an appointment with them and leverage on what their experience are. And then let us move the profession, move our personal lives, and then move our personal careers to the next level. I want to thank our sponsors, Medcourt Pharmacy, Lead It Pharmacy, MedTech Chamber, Pharma George, El Mindly, and some individuals, as well as the Pharma Business Forum. Thank you all for coming. So our next Pharma Youth Mentorship Program will be in November. I believe this time the timing was short, and then also the rains and all that. So this time, that's why we're announcing it earlier. We would have our next session in November. Aside that, we would also create that online platform where we would have both our senior colleagues and then we, the younger ones, also on, so that we can always share, depending on your interest area. You can always reach out to me, Audrey, Auntie Audrey, or just Audrey. I want to go into this direction. Do we have any contact? Do we have any mentors there? Who do I talk to? And we would make the necessary calls and then create that opportunity for you to meet them. That is why we are here. That is why some of us are, let's say, opening up ourselves for us to create that opportunity, be that bridge, so that we can always have access in both ways. I always say it's equilibrium. The older ones to love us being around for the energy that we also bring, and reminding them of when they were younger. And so they would always be willing to have that opportunity. And we thank God for social media now. We may not have to go there, just a call or a Zoom call or, phone interaction can give you that answer you need for the next level. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for signing in and joining online. And we look forward to more interactions in the future.